Right, hello everybody. People should start coming into the chat now, hopefully. So basically, I do apologise. I managed to get the problem sorted, which was... I'm not even going to go into what it was, to be honest, because it's kind of slightly embarrassing. But I'm kind of proud of myself that I stuck with it for an hour and got the problem sorted out. So... that was annoying, but I tell you what, that took a lot of mental discipline not to pick up my microphone and throw it across the room and smash things up. So my friends are here, Mr. Shinsko, who's been waiting patiently, who was... I'm also impressed didn't throw something as well, unless you did.
No, I didn't. I just have one bone to pick with you about your green room for your show. I'm not crazy about the snacks, and also Tiffany has a bigger dressing room. I got a problem with that.
Oh right, yeah. I'm sorry about that. These are things that we're working on. Yeah, Tiffany is here as well, and I apologise to you both for making you wait an hour and 10 minutes. But thanks for.
Not a problem.
You don't understand. We fucking love you.
It's the fucking internet's fault. Right, so guys, obviously, Shin, the court documents became available earlier in the week, didn't they? So, what happened? Were they sent to you? Did the courts? How does it work exactly?
Yeah, I'll go over that really briefly because I know everybody wants to get into it. But we kind of real quick. You and I talked to the stenographer at the hearing, and. She gave us her card.
Wasn't she so nice as well? And she had
Julia.
like a view, as you can see on your screen. Were that one of the windows overlooking the actual town?
Yeah, it is.
From that side of the building? Or was
it is that side of the building. I think it's the fourth window in or fifth window in on the third floor. But anyway, so we just basically put her order in just like anybody else could. And Kelp Hill, loving me some Kelp Hill, actually is the sponsor of this whole thing and provided the funds for it. And then Julie got it over to us before the expedited date, which was last Monday. And I got it out to the community as fast as I could, and I knew
You did indeed.
So fastest way possible. And by the way, I cleared it with Kelp Hill too because I thought she should have first dibs on what she wanted to do with it, if anything. And it's her response, and I totally agree with this, that she felt this belongs to the community, and she didn't have any kind of proprietary rights on this at all. But anyway, I think it's really nice of her to feel that way. And so we got this over to, I think I got it over to CT. He's not on tonight, I don't think. I got it over to you. I got it over to Ember. I got it over to a few other people. And from what I understand, there is a transcript reading today, which is cool. So, we're hoping that we see a lot more. We're going to go over not the hearing that we went to. We're going to go over the hearing that we missed, his detention.
We're going to go over both if we get time. Yeah. We'll see how we're doing for time anyway. Yeah. But the first document is the one from the initial hearing, just in case anybody doesn't know. So there's the hearing that led to the hearing that we went to, if you can call it a trial or whatever.
If I could just set it up real quick, what this is actually an appeal on his August 7th ruling by the clerk magistrate of the federal courts that he is not to be released, or I should say that he did not meet his burden of clear and convincing evidence that there was any safeguards that could protect the community from him. And so what they typically do in these things is typically you get these marked up right away because the guy's freedom's at stake. And it's interesting because the judge talks about that in this case. Usually you get it sometimes the same day, but at least the next day. In this case, they actually held this off till August 22nd, and there's a good reason for it. You'll see it. And so what that hearing was about was to determine whether Lauren could be released. Again, the same issue. And the judge decided, as everyone knows, it's not a spoiler alert, that he could not be released. So then he was held over to his October 1st hearing, which was his revocation hearing, which in a sense, for all intents and purposes, is a trial to determine what is going to happen to him finally. And that's the one we went to on October 1st. So, but the first one talks about count 4, which was dismissed in the revocation hearing that we went to. And that's the issue with the internet usage and naked photos and all that other stuff. So I thought people would be interested in hearing that right away. So without further ado, take over.
Well, I mean, we've got the document on screen now. You guys can see it as well, can't you both?
Yep.
Yes.
Tiff, you can see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think Joey very kindly put a link in the chat earlier from my ill-fated original attempt at streaming. So everybody has been able to gain access to it, which is cool because, like you said, Kelp's Pill, who donated, it was an incredibly generous donation, and they've just made it available to everybody. So everybody's benefited from it, and obviously any excess money that has been raised for any of this has gone to, will be in the process of going to Betty. So it's all cool. Tiff, you managed to have a read of this, didn't you?
I did. Yep, I read both of them.
Was there any particular things in this that made you lol out loud?
Well, of course, I loved hearing from Maria. I loved hearing what she had to say. But I think that, you know, what I love to see pointed out was that, once again, the point is that he's trying to lie, and he's trying to be deceitful, and he's trying to hide things from probation. And that's what makes him the real problem. That's what still makes him a danger. So I loved that was pointed out, and that's why the judge decided that he's going to stay.
You know what the most important thing about that hearing, I think, is the fact that we got probation's perspective on him. That we know now that probation knows who he is. And I think you'll get a flavor of that from this detention hearing. But we were always concerned, is he fooling probation? No. I think you'll see for yourself that when he does get out, probation is going to be on him very, very strict. And I think, he's somebody once called it the life sentence installment plan. You know, yeah, well, he'll end up going back there again because he will fuck up.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the relationship he has with probation, because obviously the perspective that we have as lawnographers, if you want to call us that, we have a very specific view because we're looking at it from the outside, and we've followed Lorne's case for all this time. We know the inner workings of his mind and more about his life than probation ever will. And it's a very unusual situation if you think about it. How many criminals out there who are not famous, not well known, not particularly of any note really, you know, his crime, although bad, it's not going to make headline news anywhere. But yet, how it's kind of a unique situation in that these group of people know everything about him. We know about his family, we know about his habits, we know about his proclivities, everything. So when we think about probation, I used to think that they would know everything, but they're only going to know little bits and bats, aren't they? We think that, I thought in my head at one point that they'd be listening to every single YouTube video that's released, but of course that's fucking impossible because we haven't. You know, there's people making new channels about all this stuff all the time. That's kind of what
I got the distinct impression that they've heard enough. Let's put it that way. They may have not heard them all.
Well, it's mentioned in the documents, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's hinted to.
Yeah, and he's not full. He's not. You know, you got to remember the first couple of years that he's with probation. To a certain extent, the only thing they have to rely on to know what's going on in his life is what he tells them. You know, and so they could have been snowed from that. And you also have to remember that when he was in rape class for the first 2 years, he had his case under appeal. So he was exercising his Fifth Amendment right not to speak in those classes. And so, you know, it was just a waste of time. It was just a total waste of time. So anyway, I think we should get into this because people are probably...
we've waited long enough. I apologize again for all of this, guys. It's... Do you know what's going to happen one day? We'll do a stream. Nothing will go wrong at the beginning. All the technical issues will be sorted out and it'll go brilliantly. I'm still waiting for that to happen, but it's going to happen soon. So, right, okay. So, Mr. McCormack is... Who's that? Just so we know, Shin.
He's the. I think he's either probation or he's on the other side. He's on the government side. So hang on a sec. He is. Oh, he is the AOSA, the Assistant U.S. Attorney.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Mr. Morgan.
He is the defense attorney.
Is that the same Mr. Did we see Mr. Morgan?
Yes, Mr. Morgan. I thought Mr. Morgan did a fine job. Yes, he represents.
Well, he stumbled a little bit, but God bless him. He was fighting a losing battle. That guy. Talk about, talking about being on the losing side. So we've got. Would this be the same Judge Woodcock?
Yes, it would.
Who we like very much.
I doubt there are many who have that name, but especially in Maine. And then you have Maria Schachman. That is the star of the show in the first hearing.
Right. Well, let's just skip, guys, the first few paragraphs. It's just the usual formalities. So here we are, Mr. Morgan. The evidence submitted with the motion, the court made a determination when we were here last time a couple of weeks ago.
Well, if you notice, I'll stop a little bit. Go up a little bit, just so people know. Judge is asking whether he's going to be presenting evidence. Okay, you see it, Mr. Moore. Are you going to proceed in any way, testimony or proffer? Proffer means essentially arguing the evidence that's in existence. So it's essentially an argument. So it's all coming from the attorneys. Nobody's putting on witnesses. Nobody's submitting documents. Nothing like that. So it's all just an argument. So
right, of course, yeah.
And just so you guys know, this isn't Judge Woodcock here.
This one is. This one is. This is this is Judge Woodcock actually determining whether the clerk magistrate before him did the correct thing by not releasing him. And this is his appeal on the clerk magistrate's decision not to release him. So they get an automatic appeal with the judge right afterwards. And this is Judge Woodcock's first handling of the case for sure. But before that, it was the clerk magistrate. I think that's what you're thinking about, Tiffany, on the 7th of August. But this one is Judge Woodcock.
So you're saying it's an appeal. He's appealing the fact that he's not being released, and that's the purpose of this.
That's correct. Because you have two motions for the judge right now. If you read earlier on, if you want to get into it, one is to reopen the detention hearing, which they had with the clerk magistrate. Both sides agreed, so the judge allowed that motion. Then the second motion is to reverse the clerk magistrate's decision to not release him, because at that point he had found a rape class that would accept him. So we thought that would be the changed circumstance that would make a difference if the clerk magistrate heard that in the initial hearing. Didn't work.
Right. Okay, so it says here the court made a determination when we were last here a couple of weeks ago that Mr. Armstrong carried the burden in terms of a risk of flight. That's worded in a way that my puny brain can't get at. What the fuck are they saying here? That he is a flight risk or he isn't?
Well, yeah, it's essentially it's almost the same thing as a bail review, where they determine whether they see what the severity of the crime. They take a look at whether he's a flight risk. In Lawrence's case, I don't think he even owns a passport. But but they just kind of go through that. But the big issue that they narrow it in on is the safety of the community. If they release him, are there any circumstances that could safeguard the community from him? And that's something he had to prove with clear and convincing evidence, and he couldn't at the first hearing. But at this hearing, he thinks he's loaded for bear with this other program that he can get into, but it doesn't address the underlying alcohol problem and all this other stuff. And you'll see how it went. And plus, this is when Maria unloads on him, saying there's a lot more than meets the eye in this case.
That's really what we want to get into. We can't go over this bit by bit. We're not doing a full reading. It's just
right. You're right. I just hopefully saved us about 10 minutes of reading right there.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, that's why your insight's so valuable. But we wanted to sort of skip the boring bits because it is a lot of just kind of formalities, isn't it?
Yeah.
So basically, here we are. There's no concrete assertion, even by the government, that he was a risk to minors in the sense that he was a risk from a sex offender treatment standpoint under his. Basically, the underlying conviction here, meaning he hasn't reached out to any young people on the internet. There's been no claim that he has. There was no allegation.
This is the defense arguing this. This is Mr. Morgan saying this. Okay, just so you know.
That drinking him caused to reach out to minors. So, I mean, if you look at it from that standpoint, the whole reason of him being in court, like we said last time, is the to catch a predator thing. The whole thing is because he's a registered sex offender, so his defence is saying there's no allegations. They're trying to, basically, it would seem to me, Shin, they're trying to set out the stall and sort of diminish any kind of unnecessary weight that he might carry and say, right, okay, we're talking about things like drinking things here. We're not talking about him trying to screw another kid.
Well, again, without reading into the transcript, what Morgan's argument was is, yes, the abuse of alcohol would definitely increase the likelihood that he would violate his terms dealing with possibly improper behavior around children or people like that. They're just saying that as an outright, that alcohol can loosen his inhibitions to do something stupid, and that's what Morgan's arguing. But then, I think he gets sandbagged by Maria right after that. By the way, his inhibitions were loosened, and this is how. And she talks about the children, and she talks about his. Well, let's just go into it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's get into it.
But he didn't have much to go with. What he was just saying is, look, we just deal with the alcohol. We could deal with the problem. And then Maria said, well, there's a little bit more of a problem than that. So here we go.
Probation's acknowledged that on June of 2007, he presented his probation officer with his AA chip. He will continue with AA. He would be willing to be monitored, blah, 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 blah. Second piece is a sex offender treatment. I did speak. Who's Mr. Hogan?
Hogan is the... Oh, I'm sorry. Tiffany, you would actually know that better than I would. Do you know who Hogan is?
He's the counselor at the class that he was in.
Right.
He's the one who suspended him from
rape class.
Yeah.
Rape class, yeah.
Right. So, okay. So that makes sense because they're saying the second piece. I did speak with Mr. Hogan. He could... So... he's got a weird job, hasn't he? Have a good day at rape class today, dear. No problem. He confirmed that Mr. Armstrong and Dwayne Hogan is the treatment provider. He's answering the question here that I just asked. He suspended he suspended Mr. Armstrong. I just think that worded funny. Dwayne Hogan is the treatment provider who suspended Mr. It just makes me laugh. It's like suspended from rape class. Have you fucking...
I know. We got to get past this.
Sorry. Well, these things happen. He confirmed that suspension did not mean Lorne was not allowed to come back, which is obviously what a suspension means.
He should be punished. That's what he's saying. He should be punished before he allows to come back. We can get past that too.
Told me the reason for that was if Mr. Armstrong was allowed to lie and return to treatment without any punishment, in his own words, would spread like wildfire among the other people being treated. Well, that's true. They've got to maintain order, haven't they? They've got to basically make sure that they've got to set an example, basically, haven't they? They want this, this guy running this class has got a fucking hard job, hasn't he? I'd love to speak to that guy about Lorne. Oh my God. We did find Lorne reached out to treatment providers. He found one in here in Bangor area. What does that mean that he reached out to other treatment providers? Was he told to? Because there's no way he's going to do that off his own back.
Tiffany,
he didn't reach out to them. He didn't reach out to them. He had his aunt do it.
So this is his defense talking shite, basically, isn't it?
Well, no.
Yeah, he didn't.
They had to confirm that they would accept him, though. I think there's a letter or something from them, but he has to pay for it.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is he's making out like Lorne did something of kind of admirable in that he's seeking treatment to get better. We know that isn't the case.
No. Well, this is like standard stuff his lawyer would do. That's the first thing I would do is look for a treatment provider. If that seemed to be the only issue that prevented him from going out in the community and keeping the community safe, then it's fairly easy. Let's deal with his drinking. Let's get him in a new rape class. And by the way, he's going to be paying for this one too. So, the community should be safeguarded based on those reasons. And that's his argument. We can get past that. And because it's really the best you can do with this case. So...
They provide both individual and group sex offender treatment. Tiffany, from what you remember, it was all group-based, wasn't it?
Well, I don't remember specifically if they had offered him individual treatment. They may have outlined that in their form to let the court know what was available. But I believe that they were specifically talking about group treatment, just like he was doing this time.
Right.
Yep, you're right. He doesn't need alcohol to do stupid shit.
So
Oh my God.
sex offender treatment services that he's willing and able to pay for. So his solicitors, sort of leaning to the point where he's going to have to pay for it, and he says he's willing. It's all trying to paint him in a good light, which is, of course, what he's going to have to do, isn't it? And he's addressed the issue about the sex offender treatment counselling by finding new counselling. So based on that, he's carried his burden to show by clear and convincing evidence that he should be released. This isn't a question about whether he should be punished, simply a question whether he should be released pending. Okay, the court, thank you, Mr. McCormick. Yes, Your Honour. First, just in terms of the drinking, the government takes issues with the fact that he's drinking doesn't lead to an increased risk. The government believes that it does. Okay. So he's basically trying to downplay his danger. So how dangerous he is, basically, isn't it?
It's the second paragraph of this, a little more poignant, though. And in addition, Your Honor, I do think that it's significant that there are not, these are not one-off drinking things that he has been involved with. I mean, one of the statements from the petition say that on July 24th, Armstrong admitted to probation he had consumed alcohol on July 7th, 2019, and reported he had been consuming alcohol on a weekly basis since the complete of the SoberLink testing on December 4th of 2017, and he consumes on an average of 7 to 12 beers in a sitting. So I think the risk, Your Honor, is only that he seems to have very serious issues with alcohol, but also that he seems to just frankly be ignoring the rules, which I think is of concern. That he finishes his SoberLink training, he thinks he can continue to go on drinking without any repercussions. And I think the fact that he is willing to ignore these rules in a combination with the fact that we do have evidence as well or at least there is an allegation about his involvement in getting a smartphone, which again is ignoring the rules that are clearly laid out for him. I think those are all risks to the community. And I think that basically what I feel like is happening in this case is that he gets kicked out of sex offender program. And he should have said rape class. And he goes and finds another one. That I'm not sure that really addresses the risks involved. So I think that detention is appropriate, Your Honor. And then the judge asked, do we know what the guidelines are? We can go past that part. This is where they look at two sets. They could look at the statute or they could look at the statutory guidelines. This is boring.
Right. I'll tell you what we will do, though. We're not going to go through. This isn't a reading. We're going to try and review it. So, Tiffany, would you do the honor of reading the first paragraph that Maria says in the court, please? Can you see it on screen there?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I can see it. Your Honor, I would just add that, like it was already stated, that the alcohol is an issue with lowering inhibitions. And there was an issue with Mr. Armstrong throughout supervision in having conversations over the phone with females that he had never met, and we could not determine what their ages were. So that continued interaction with people online that he is unaware of who they are goes back to his original offense, and that is a risk.
Think about this, right? Maria said that in court, was talking about females he doesn't know who he was talking to, and Tiffany has just read that out on the internet now. That's conclusive proof that she was telling the truth.
We got to let her finish with Maria, because this is. Let me cue her up. The court. Tell me the relationship between his conduct that you were monitoring and the original offenses.
The original offense had to do with having a conversation with a person he believed to be an underage female online, that he continued to have this conversation, and then went to meet with this person, but it was actually an undercover agent. And that, in the eyes of probation, correlates with the same behavior now of having conversations with females on the phone. We don't know their ages. We can't confirm if they are adults or not.
Oh, wow. Cool. The court's going, oh, wow. Okay. All right. And what was probation or some law enforcement able to monitor the substance of those communications?
We were not able to a limited degree. We were checking text messages And we would receive anonymous emails and phone calls about his behavior with links to recorded conversations he had with females over the phone. One of those conversations that is included in the revocation report, he had asked one of the females to provide sexual images of herself and to send them through the mail so that probation would not be able to find them.
Right. Let's just talk about this particular incident, because I'm not 100% sure who it actually was. He wanted someone.
Yeah, he did. It may have been me.
Right. Okay. So how would they have found out about this?
Because they were receiving recordings. This was a recording that they had heard that someone sent to them.
So
yes.
Someone could have sent them a message with a link to a video, or could have actually sent them a recording.
Yeah, that's what they did. They were receiving anonymous emails.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not surprising, really. I'm surprised it didn't happen more often, but that did get mentioned in the court hearing that we went to, that there was emails sent to probation saying he was a predator, and obviously we'll go into that if we get time.
Mm-hmm.
So Maria says then, if she can check her record, and then says that was February of 2018. Did you start conversations with him then, Tiff?
No, perhaps it was before then. But I do remember him saying, and I can't remember exactly when that was, but he was talking about sending things through the mail. So that could have been another instance when he did that.
Well, actually, she talks about that. I didn't mean to give that away, but as we read on, it gets better.
Right.
Okay. So, I mean, we'll have to try and... Saying that though, this document isn't that big, really, is it? So Maria, the conversation with Mr. Armstrong, he called me on the phone. This is not highlighted in the report, but approximately when was this? This was approximately 5 or 6 months ago. Right, do you want to read this bit, Tiff, if you don't mind, please? It's only fair.
Yeah.
This is my favorite.
Sorry.
That he had called me and asked a request to move or go out to California to meet with this individual he had been speaking with over the phone, that he had never met. We had no proof of who she was, and he was informed by associates of hers that she was in the ICU and she was very sick. He had requested to go out to California and to marry her as her last request because he was informed that she may pass away. And he had sent me an image of a female that he believed to be this individual in the hospital.
Oh my, I couldn't fucking believe it when I read that bit.
Keep going.
Upon doing an exam on that image by my office, we found out that this was actually an image of a 15-year-old girl who was in a coma based out of a London newspaper.
And by the way, that photograph...
How did you find that from that image?
Just on Google. They did a reverse image search of what was found, and it popped right up.
Yeah, and they have all kinds of image recognition. You talk about a cyber aspect to what they do. Especially monitoring stuff like that.
This is quite a big thing, isn't it? Because if you think about the context of the case, right, what they're uncovering here is that he's getting... However he's getting them, there's underage girls involved, whether it's images, whether it's conversations. You've got all this kind of doubt is being thrown upon him. If you're thinking about the minds of the people involved and the judge, it's like, right, okay, we got this guy who was caught in this undercover sting. He's been talking to females on the phone. He doesn't know how old they are, and he's getting images of a 15-year-old girl. You'd be thinking, at this point, I would say that it's over that he's going to get out. Would you agree, Shin?
Yeah, I don't know. I got to tell you though. Can you repeat that question? The last part of that question. I heard everything you said.
From what we've uncovered here, with the fact that he's got a 15-year-old girl, an image of her, there's no doubt at all that the judge would keep him inside. In other words, he's
keep him inside. I thought you said keep him out. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is something. This is kind of like new. I mean, and you could tell the judge is very interested in what's going on here. Keeps asking follow-up questions and stuff.
Yeah, had he received that image?
Yeah, and it gets worse.
he explained to me that this individual's associates had sent him that image over the phone. Is it apparent in this person's relevant age apparent from reviewing the photo? No, Your Honour, she looked young, but I could tell she was... But I could not tell if she was of age or not. So really, like, you would suggest from that Maria, she's just being honest, isn't she? She's just... if she had a specific vendetta against Lorne, wouldn't you just say, oh yeah, you could clearly tell. In fact, she looks about 12. Well, she just
yeah, and by the way, that picture's in the dump, by the way. I think Ember just put it in the dump. So that
did you look at that photo yourself?
I did, and I couldn't tell how old she was. She was young, but that's the issue. That's exactly what the issue is. You got to verify this stuff. And all of his catfishes don't tell him their birthdays. So he's being purposely kept that information from him, which is really something he shouldn't be doing. But okay,
yeah.
What does he say? And how was that resolved? Was he granted permission to go to California? Was he confronted with what the reality was? How did that resolve?
Yes, his request was denied, and I explained to him what we had found, that this was not the person he thought it was. And he was very upset that they had lied to him. And then months later, he continued to engage with those same individuals who had been lying to him. Of course. Of course.
Now, does that shock anybody in the chat here that this guy continues to talk to people who had lied to him? This does seem to be a continuing theme, doesn't it? They're just kind of getting to the bottom of his stupidity now as well, aren't they?
Oh my God, Tiffany, you were part of that. I mean, did he ever mention anything about, hey, why did you guys give me a phony photograph, or why did you give me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we didn't see.
Well, he had talked about that this exact conversation that he had with Maria. That they had somebody look at the photo, look into it, and do a search on it, and was able to determine where it actually came from, and that it was not his girlfriend who was in ICU wanting to get married. So he was upset. I do remember he was mad, but also, once again, he was just talked out of it. Like, and I don't remember the details because so much has happened, but he was talked out of it. Like, okay, it ended up not being a big deal, and he was able to move forward.
Wow.
Yeah, fucking hell. It's. I was fascinated when I was reading this for the first time. This really interested me. Like, it was like, like when you're reading one of your favourite books and you're glued to it. It was kind of like that. You just thinking, God, this is gold, isn't it? It's so interesting for us to read this as these people that have followed this case, because what we've done is we've talked about it ourselves, we've thought about it, we've listened to calls, we've speculated whether he's going to go back inside, and then to suddenly hear it spoken by a judge, by probation, by a lawyer, it's very interesting, isn't it? It's like seeing it all fall into place. It's like you're preparing a script, and then suddenly you're hearing the actors read it. It's really interesting.
And we've seen this. We were lucky enough to physically be there to see these cast of characters, except for Maria. She wasn't there the second time.
I know, I was a bit disappointed in that, really, but we can't. It didn't spoil it or anything like that.
No. But my point is, when I read this, it becomes much more. It jumps much more to life, because I know the venue, I know the characters, I know what their voices sound like now, and it just kind of adds more to it than just reading the words off a page.
I mean, it was a remarkable experience. I'm not trying to rub it in for anybody that wasn't there, because it was only me that was sad enough to fucking get on a plane and travel to another country. But it was a remarkable experience. It was like it made the whole trip worthwhile for me. It was just, I remember whispering to Michael, who was sat at the side of me, and think we were about, because you sat behind me when you got in, didn't you, Shim?
Yeah.
Because we were a bit mindful that we didn't want to all be sat together, so we went in stagnated. And then I went and sat next to Michael when I first went in there. And after about the first 10 minutes, you know, there was a bit of toing and froing, and then I remember saying to him, probably about halfway through, after about an hour, and I said, "This is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen." It was just so, to a normal bystander that didn't know anything about the case, it'd probably be pretty fucking dull, wouldn't it? You'd be like, I don't really care who is this guy. But to us, it was fascinating. It was like, you know, you've been waiting years to watch a film and you'd heard about it, and then suddenly you're there in the theatre and you're watching it and you're like, this is great. This is what I've been waiting years for, you know. It's fantastic. So did you, Tiffany, when you were reading these documents, how did you feel when you was reading them? Were you pretty anxious to read them and see it all put together?
Oh, absolutely. I was really excited to see this one, because all that we knew was that Maria talked shit about him, and she was just laying it all out on the line. So we really wanted to know, what did she say? Yeah, especially to get him so mad. So yeah,
I think I sent you the document, and I had a bit of a joke and said, "I'm not sending you, send me some money," and you then got immediately abusive and said, "Fuck off, send them in."
Yeah.
So I kind of gathered you was anxious to read them, shall we say.
I stopped what I was doing. I was at work and I stopped what I was doing. I had to read these first. I just had to see it.
Yeah, so I hope everybody in the chat who's managed to read them has had the same. It'll be interesting to get other people's perspectives. I'm not monitoring the chat as much as a son. I'm not kind of. Paul's in the chat. Hello, dude. Another one of our associates who went with us, who knows full well it's Socks in the chat, in case anybody doesn't know, with the Lucha lookalike top on. Government has mentioned, and you have mentioned, alcohol consumption as being an issue. Is there any evidence of alcohol use during, like, this incident with the communications with the person who turned out to be a 16-year-old, or associates anyway, or any of the other communications about which probation is concerned? So they're just trying to, basically, they're uncovering that it's all linked, aren't they, basically? That he gets drunk, he's talking to these people. Do you want to? This is turning into a bit of a reading, is it?
Well, we're only reading one part. I mean, one part role, and I don't think we should leave out anything when it comes to this, because we can, just Maria's part. I mean, obviously, we kind of could breeze over some other stuff, but I think Tiffany deserves the satisfaction of reading this.
I agree.
Sure.
Would you mind continuing for our pleasure, Tiffany, please?
Of course. So one of the links that U.S. Probation was sent, there was an audio clip of Mr. Armstrong having a conversation with a female over the phone. He appeared, or he sounded as if he was intoxicated. He was slurring his words. So we confronted him about that audio clip, and he had admitted to my supervisor that he had been drinking during that conversation, and that was, in fact, him on the phone.
I note on the docket that there was relatively recent, within the last month and a half or so, a request that was not objected by Mr. Armstrong for a modification of his conditions, which imposed, I guess, what would I consider the computer monitoring condition, or internet monitoring. Is that right?
Yeah, so for this part, they're just talking about one of his modifications, and they updated some language. There, so.
Right.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. And just to address something that the judge had just said, that he did not object to the modification. He did not object to any of the modifications that were presented to him. And every single one, if you look at the waiver that he signed, every single one says that if you do not comply, you could be sent to jail.
And if you don't want to agree to this, you have a right to a hearing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right at the top. You have the right to a hearing, to an attorney, everything. And he waived all of those rights immediately. He just
partially. Didn't he send a letter to the judge to backdoor probation on this thing? Didn't he send an ex parte communication to the judge talking about how alcohol shouldn't be one of his conditions?
I believe that was the letter that he sent back in 2017, when he was asking for a new defender.
Right. And okay. All right. But he signed a modification to go on a breathalyzer in 2017, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
Everything that Maria put in front of him, he signed
right.
immediately.
So even though he waived his right to a hearing, he went ahead and sent a letter to the judge anyway.
Yes. Well, this is the same person that wanted to have his free public defender work with a paid attorney as well.
Right.
So he wants all the forces to be joined together to work on his behalf.
The courts love that. The courts love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's more from Maria. Let's see. Where was it? Yeah, this is just the modifications proposed. Let's see. Right. Oh, I'm trying to scroll it up. Andrew, that's your control. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, I'm just kind of reading this little bit here because this is not.
Oh, that's interesting. It's not a contracted provider, whoever he went to for his rape class.
The one that he had suggested.
Yeah, so is that... Sorry. Was that some Christian-related thing?
It was. Yeah, I believe that it was a pastor that was heading. So it was definitely Christian-based.
So it's a form of pray the gay away, but pray the pedo away. Okay.
It could be. I know that this is where the limestone testing is an option there as well, which is of course interesting. But yeah, it seemed like he was going to have to pay a lot of money to go to this particular provider because he was going to have to pay for his initial consultation. He was going to have to pay for each class. He was going to have to pay for all of the polygraph tests. So essentially everything that he was doing in his previous 2 classes, he was going to have to do here as well. But he was going to have to pay for it. And if he doesn't pay for it, then he would get kicked out. Yeah,
and that was going to cost him a big chunk of change. I think it was like...
Absolutely.
Wasn't it like $300 or $400 a week or something like that?
No, I think each class was $30, but and I don't remember all of the figures. That one stands out to me, so hopefully that's correct. The other ones, though, I believe were a couple of hundred. So for his actual his initial lie detector test, and then each subsequent one, his initial consultation again was going to cost money. So everything there was nickel and dimed.
Tiffany, when are you going to understand he doesn't give a shit about money? Don't you understand that?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh no, I understand that perfectly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So the courts have asked here, when was the last time they were aware they'd spoken to a woman on the phone, or who he thought, and they've confirmed within the last 2 months. He's continued to do that, and how was the evidence brought to your attention? How do we know of this? This is interesting. Do you mind reading this bit?
Sure. He continued to bring up the issue of these females to probation because he wanted to be allowed to continue to have these conversations. And he believed that continued conversations with these females would, because there are many people on the internet that have that have posted very negative information about Mr. Armstrong. And he thought that the continued conversations with these people would help vindicate him in some way. So he would continue to talk with them he was continuing to talk about it with probation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is very interesting.
Because he never admitted that. He admits that to probation. He's saying, I could use this opportunity to clear my name. Or to propose that I'm someone who they don't think I am. So, something like that. He's actually trying to con you guys. That's what he's saying. Would help.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he that was also the reason why he was doing the reading of his chat log. He wasn't doing it for his benefit. He wanted it all recorded. He wanted everyone to hear him cry and or pretend to cry. Well, just be honest and say that he doesn't feel bad about anything. But he wanted all of that to be documented, to be recorded for the public's benefit, and then also for his celebrity fans.
Basically, it's like every decision that he makes, it all comes back to himself. Very rarely do human beings make decisions that are completely selfless, but we all do some from time to time. He doesn't do any. Wasn't there a time when you were going through the readings, Tiffany, where he cried and then he didn't think anybody were listening and immediately stopped? I can't remember the exact story you told me, but you told me something about that. Does that ring a bell? Wasn't that during one of the
Yeah,
chat log readings?
it was during one of the chat log readings. And I want to say that for my part, it was really hard to read because it's not, when you're hearing Lauren do it, it kind of put me into a place of like, this is the actual predator. And then, of course, you have other, maybe, and if I was reading it with somebody else, I would be able to not feel so emotional about it. But there was a certain part where he's talking about taking the photos of his dick inside of her and being careful not to show their faces and stuff like that. And that was so, you're just imagining that we know that this isn't a real kid, but he thought that it was. And that's so, when you think about how damaging that is, it really made me sad. And so I had to stop for a second. And he was, crying allegedly. But then right after I had put myself on hold, he immediately, and then he thought that the recording was placed on hold as well. And then he immediately starts talking to the dog. Hey, pretty little girl.
I know.
The whole thing.
He did that right after that major confession of yours, too. Of his.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he has no idea what he just did. He has no idea what he just did. It's amazing. Right. It's amazing. Yeah. For those of you who were kind of new to this, Tiffany was able to read Lauren's chat log back in 2007 that he had trying to groom a 13-year-old girl, about 407 pages worth. So that was an act of attrition, to tell you the truth, Tiffany, to do that.
Well, it wasn't the whole thing. Just to be clear, it wasn't the whole thing. We got up to maybe, I think, the 7th, somewhere around the 8th, 10th, somewhere like that.
It's not like it's not like you missed anything new in it, right? I mean, it's probably
no. No, there's a lot of lulls and, do you want to see it? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is interesting, where Maria says he'd been told multiple times by probation not to engage with these females because of our concern that we did not know what their ages were. So, of course, they can't say who he can... If he's got... How does it lie with the sort of sex offender conditions over in the States, right? Let's say he entered into a relationship with a female that was his own age. Would there have to be checks made by probation with regard to her and her family and things like that?
Yes, in relationships, yes.
Because obviously he's not allowed to be with children under the age of 18 without their consent. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And or a supervisor that has been previously approved by probation.
What a terrible burden to live with. Not that he doesn't deserve it, but I'm just saying, just imagine having that imposed on your life. That's absolutely...
Yeah, I can't see why Tiffany didn't jump all over that life. Tiffany.
It's just a crazy thing. Imagine having to look at yourself in the mirror when you're not allowed to go anywhere near children. But of course, there was a Louis Theroux documentary about I think it was a famous case, a female teacher in the States who was got caught having sex with a 14-year-old boy, and she was jailed, and I believe she had her own children and wasn't even allowed to see her own kids.
Right.
I think, did we speak about that, Shin, briefly?
No, we didn't. But there is a case just like that. That Florida case that in TCAP with that guy who brought his kid. But in that case, when he got out, probation decided he couldn't live under the same roof as his kid, and his wife did a monstrous thing, as far as I'm concerned. She gave the kid up just to stay with the guy.
Is that confirmed?
Well, according to the reports, I mean, I didn't do my own independent research, but that's what. Where was that? Shoot, maybe I shouldn't speak so loosely about that, but no, it was on a follow up on Where Are They Now.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether this is because that's quite a big deal, isn't it? If someone, I mean, I've heard similar reports from people in England that have done that. There was someone on a talk show that was going out with a and
consider this also. I mean, if you go with the mantra of life that is, you get what you give, that kind of thing, where you're looking for a relationship and you get what you give out of it. What is Lauren offering to anyone? He's offering to immediately disenfranchise you from 40% of the population, everybody under 18. He's looking to
have you live under the same restrictions that he has. In terms of having children with him, that's going to be a clusterfuck. It's what the hell does he have to give that he demands getting so much from? I don't understand that.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Join me in my hell.
Fascinates me. It's a really good point, that, Shin, actually. I've not really heard it put like that before. It's
most of the time people say, "Oh, come to me and we'll build a life together. I'll build my world around you," and blah blah blah. No, in his case, it's come to me and live in hell with me, please.
But you've just highlighted another way of saying that it's all about him. There's no, I mean, let's think about it logically, right? Let's look at this from a truth perspective and not point fingers, right? When we see somebody of the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever your inclination might be, and you want to get with them, and your biology takes over, you don't immediately think how good I am for that person. You want them. Something takes over you. But as humans, when we get into relationships and things change, don't they? And part of what you have to offer as a person comes out. So you'll treat, you'll smell good, you'll look good, you'll buy them things. Especially when it comes to children, because we're supposed to be programmed to protect our young, but Lorne seems to be programmed to harm them. It's remarkable, really, and you've just hit the nail on the head out. He's so ridiculously selfish. It's like even after the conversations you had with him, Tiffany, where you lost quite rightly, your temper with him a few times and called him horrible names, and he's still saying things to you like, you should give me a chance. And you're just thinking, what planet? What does he think he's got to offer at all? Is he arrogance? Is he insane? Is someone have aliens experimented on him and they're trying to figure out? It's just fucking bizarre.
Nobody wants to pass up a lifetime of concerts around the country, cruising in a concert bus. Okay, let's
just come to my concert.
There are a lot of people who would Tiffany, I got to tell you, you got to say that vision has got to be somewhat attractive to you, But
you can hear his voicemails where he's singing and screaming. So, if that's any indication of what it would be like at a concert
or on that bus.
On that bus, yeah, exactly.
Oh, isn't this interesting? Yeah. So initially, when he was allowed to have internet,
yes.
Tiff, you've got to read that bit, please.
Sure. So initially, when he was allowed to have internet access, he had a YouTube channel where he was trying to sell hats and other items because he had garnered a lot of internet attraction from him being on TV from his original case.
I literally pissed myself when I read that.
His original case had some TV relationship? Go ahead. Take it over.
Can you scroll down?
You got to scroll down.
Sorry.
Yes, he was on To Catch a Predator.
And so, when was it that he was permitted to have internet access? Is that, and then it shut down at some point?
Yes.
So when he was, how long a period of time that he was allowed to have this internet access, and when it was changed?
From approximately 2015, before I had the case with Officer Oswald, until 2017, when we started receiving anonymous emails about his behavior online, and my office then restricted the internet access.
Interesting.
I just want to, if I can interject here, to add a point. He never mentioned anything about his probation officer receiving anonymous emails, or that was the reason why they were restricting the internet access, that it had to do with him trying to sell things. He always mentioned that it had to do with them thinking that he spent too much time on the internet.
Right. He said he was using the computer, right? And that he only had the YouTube channel minimized or something?
Yeah. Yes, he would have it minimized. And then he was doing some kind of online surveys to make money while he was between jobs. And so they were telling him that he was using the internet too much, or he was only on the computer too much. So that's why they restricted it. But he never talked about them receiving any anonymous emails, or that they were worried about his behavior by selling items.
Maybe he didn't know. Maybe they didn't tell him.
Well, I was just going to mention that,
Right.
because how do we know that he was told? Because I don't think they'd necessarily tell him, would they? Why would they? There's no need to do. They don't legally have to tell him, do they?
They know what his response is going to be. Oh, listen, we got an anonymous email calling you a pedophile, or predator rather, and that you're on the internet and abusing people. And what would he say to that? It would just be a long cry session with him. There's no point in even going over that with him. Just cut him out. Just shut him down. And then tell him, oh, you're on YouTube for too long. Give him some pretense of an answer, you know?
Now, look
Well,
at
the
it,
thing
guys.
is, too, is that...
Yeah.
This is where we all get referred to in the court. You're going to have to read this little part out, Tiff.
There was these people stemmed from a group that were online that were following him because of his original case.
And give yourselves a pat on the back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
It gets better.
Oh, brilliant. It's like, can you imagine if like that happened and then there was like fucking 500 people in the courts that just started rattling off his catchphrases and stuff. Oh, just fantastic. We'll do that when we make this sitcom, Shin, won't we?
Yes. Oh, man. Okay, all right. So is that where, when you talk about these women that he had spoken to, were all of these in similarly situated in the sense that they had followed him in some way on social media or whatever because of this his prior case, or do you know one way or the other? Some of these individuals. Okay, we got to keep going. Maria blast him again. Oh, I guess, is that it? Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to address? So now
Yeah,
the
that
court
looks
are
like it.
asking Mr.
Okay.
Morgan is, just to reiterate, is Lorne's defence attorney.
Right.
I would just address a couple of things, and if Officer Schumann thinks that I'm being inaccurate, please stand up and tell me, kind of, so I think it might be easiest that way. Court, sure. I do think the context of what happened with this case is important. I should have mentioned that before, but now Maria has gone through a decent amount of it. This isn't attention that he necessarily wants when you know vindicating himself, etc. I mean, there are people who have been sending improper emails to his mother, so he's playing the victim at this point. Is this potentially a directive that he's told, that Lorne has told his defence? Well, obviously he's told his defence because his defence knew it's the only way he could have known, but what I mean is, because what's starting to happen now is he's going down the victim route, isn't he?
Yeah, his attorney's taking that up. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how that helps his case. Obviously, this, bad shit happens out there. It has nothing to do with what he's doing. So if people are going to send shit to his mother, yeah, it's a shitty thing to do. But at the same time, it's not going to give him any slack on this.
But isn't that what a desperate defense would do? Just throw anything they can to try and invoke some kind of pity.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have much, right?
Yeah, which is like a little bit like when his mother took the stand.
Yeah.
The internet is a terrible place for things like this. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute, pal. The internet's a terrible place for fucking people like him trying to get his end away with kids.
He mentions it twice though about his mother too. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget which 15-year-old or 16-year-old. I forget which
He told him he asked for permission, which was night. Didn't go. It sounded like he was complying. Okay, this is all just defense bullshit. Yeah, it'll piss you off to keep reading this. It's so there's no reason to think.
It's kind of interesting just to skirt over what the defense angle is. It sounds like he has people looking to set him up to fail on the internet, and he may have poor judgment about who he should be interacting with. This doesn't really do... In fact, I would say this does his defence harm, because what they're saying is he's kind of completely reckless, doesn't have any judgment, goes along with anything. He's not able to stand up for himself.
Oh, but then he puts his foot in his mouth because Maria's going to come back later. But as long as there's evidence that he's trying to clear things with probation and not going over their head, we'll just leave it at that. Okay? He makes a fairly decent argument. I mean, again, the old mantra: if you have the law, you pound the law. If you have the facts, you pound the facts. If you got neither, you pound the table. That's what he's doing.
He tells me these are friendships with people who are of age. He's likely to have relationships with people. Blah blah blah. It's his drinking that he's had trouble with, and he needs counselling for that. And he's willing to do the counselling and have the monitoring device as a condition of release. So I think it's his disclosures to probation actually bode in his favour.
Yeah, he's trying to bring this back to all alcohol. That's what he's trying to do, and that's an easily fixable situation. That if anything, he's arguing this is a health issue, not a criminal justice issue.
And I forget to mention, but he'd be willing to obviously execute any releases necessary with a new treatment provider, so probation would have all the information. What I'm not entirely sure what he means by that.
In other words, let's see. In other words, he's willing to give a release to probation so they can get access to his medical treatment records that are outside probation's control.
Right. Okay.
Of course he would. He'd have to. Sometimes for his initial appearance. Okay, here's the judge is just talking about. It's really weird that you're asking for an appeal on his detention that was ordered 2.5, 3 weeks ago. Usually it happens on the same day. You can see him talking about that. But now he understands why. There's a lot to unpack here. That's all. You can get past that. People can read that on their own, but that interprets what he's saying, at least the way I see it. Then he's talking about the lack of candor. That's an issue. Again, makes sense in terms of he understands what the counselor in rape class was saying. He needs to be punished, but then we'll take him back. That makes sense because if he gets away with a lie, then everybody's going to lie in the class. So that makes sense. Okay, I can understand that. Then he gets into that shit there about his treatment, substance abuse, and frankly, if there were. Folks, I hope we're not going over this too fast, but they'll be available for people to read. We're just trying to
this is a review. We're not going through it with a fine-tooth comb. We're just picking out bits that look interesting. We haven't got time to go through it all.
Interesting paragraph. I must concede that the information that has been shared today regarding Mr. Armstrong's conduct while on probation is concerning. I have no basis to say what the motivation was. I'm aware of that prohibits Mr. Armstrong from engaging in communication with relations with adult women, and there's nothing that the underlying allegations are not suggestive of any misdeeds in that respect. Now, I think that who's saying that? Is that the court or is that? Oh no, that's the court.
I was just kind of wondering that myself.
Well, they don't have any hard evidence that he's talking to a minor.
Yeah,
that's what he's saying. So he's got to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. And I think Maria pipes in again.
The concern that the information raises here as follows. One, that Mr. Armstrong has, it sounds like, fairly consistently, while upon release, deliberately engaged in conduct that he knew was prohibited by his conditions. So in other words, he's taking the piss. The alcohol is the most obvious. The alcohol use is most obvious. The use of the internet and devices that he was prohibited from using is another one. And that's challenging to monitor. It is, of course. I mean, basically what they're saying is, you can have mobile phones up your ass and all sorts of stuff. What can you actually do? It's very easy to get all the burner phones. All you have to remember is looking... it made it laugh at Breaking Bad to me when... what's he called? What's the lawyer called? The crazy lawyer.
Saul Goodman.
Saul Goodman opened his drawer up and was like 25 phones. Always made me laugh that.
I feel like the next line that the judge says.
Yeah. And perhaps one of the most concerning things that I heard was his attempts at deceit when he was told again and again, I know this by
proffer.
Is by his proffer, when he said, and I think you understand that there's evidence of this from at least somebody who was reported to probation. that he asked that explicit photos be sent and granted not of a minor but be sent in a way so as to make that probation was not aware of it. And in fact, Mr. Armstrong was engaging in behaviour that he knew was permissible and appropriate. There'd be no reason to be concerned about whether probation was aware of it or became aware of it at all. None. I don't know the full backstory to the case, or at least from Mr. Rogers's perspective, he's attempted to kind of clear his name good luck with that, in the public domain, or would like to clear his name in the public domain. I can appreciate that if, in fact, there is information out there that is hurtful to him and his family. I can't assess. Okay, another interpretation, however. Although Obscurement did not articulate this.
Go down. Yeah. Another interpretation is that he welcomes the attention to some degree. If the information about selling items or memorabilia or something that commemorates this, the incident is accurate. I don't know that it is. It's been proffered here today as something that occurred, and the continuing interaction with people affiliated with that case and the notoriety that went with it can be interpreted as wanting to facilitate that, or as opposed to clear his name. And again, I'm not making any determinations. He's questioning his motives. Why is he doing this?
Yeah, well, exactly. It's the same thing that we all said, and quite rightly, when he started flogging. It's the same conflict of interests and hypocrisy that runs through law. And when he says he wants to forget the past, but yet wants to profit from it by flogging his T-shirts, selling his guitar for $500 or whatever it was. And it's the same thing, isn't it? You know, he can't really understand the decisions that he makes are working against him. But I point to all those things because those are concerning factors. Blah blah blah, and then you can have two potential interpretations. Which more crystallized? And while objectively you may be able to say, look, if he addressed the alcohol and if he gets back into sex offender treatment, that should do it. Well, with somebody who has been in compliance and hasn't been, made attempts to engage in conduct without detection by probation and engaged in conduct that was in deliberate violation. And there's no argument to be made that he wasn't aware of the conditions. I simply can't get to that level of clear and that I'm convinced by clear and convincing evidence that these conditions would address the safety concerns. Okay.
That's pretty much it, I think. I thought Maria comes at him again, but let's see. Does she?
Doesn't look like it. I probably would have identified other areas of concern. I do not want you to think that your efforts were for naught or appreciated by the court and your attempt to address the concerns. Understood. Thank you.
That was for Lauren's benefit, just so you know.
Right. Okay. I understand them. So while we're going to grant the motion to reopen we have granted the motion to reopen the detention hearing. I'm going to deny the defendant's request for release upon conditions for the reasons I've just articulated. Are there any other issues that the government, the court to address? Nothing else from the government. Thank you, Your Honour. Mr. Morgan. Nothing else. So I think, is that it? That's it.
That's it.
So, if we have a summary, Shin, would you like to cast your experience on the summary of that hearing then?
Yeah, again, it's pretty much what I said before. It's an appeal on his initial findings that he posed a danger to society, and the judge agreed with the clerk magistrate's findings. And now he is ordered on 8/22 to stay in custody until his hearing, which is scheduled on October 1st, which is next. I got to step away for 1 second.
Yeah, fine. We'll hang on a bit for Shin to get back before we wrap things up. So what I'm thinking I might do, guys, is because we've run over time, if I hadn't have made a monumental fuck up, we'd have been 2 hours in now and maybe been able to go over the other document, but we'll maybe look to do that next week or another time. Is there anything you want to add, Tiffany, about any of this that you found interesting when you read it? Apart from the fact that, he's a liar, did you find any of it amusing?
Well, of course, mentioning that he wanted to move to California to marry someone as their last request. is pretty funny.
It is funny, isn't it? Because we laugh when we hear this stuff, but to hear it, you can imagine it being read out in court, and it is probably the same reaction that I had when I heard him prattle on about his cooking show.
Yeah, and I wish that these YouTube comments from Sylvester Stallone and everyone else was brought up, because that would have been really great for the judge to hear.
Back. Okay. That was a great one to come back to. Oh, can we do the next one?
Well, what I was going to say, because it's gone midnight here, because of my fuck up, we've only been able to get through one document. So what I'm suggesting is we do the second document another time and go through it, because there's going to be a lot to get through there, and we want to sort of see if we can remember little bits and bats about what we.
Well, can I make a suggestion? Just so that we don't have people hanging on who don't have access. Can we just read Lauren's statement to the court, maybe? Is that something we can do? From the next hearing, yeah.
That's a really good idea, yeah. I'll just...
And maybe Mama Gwen's statement, too? That would be great.
Yeah, okay, we'll do that. That's a good idea. We'll do that, and then we'll wrap it up.
And can we have Tiffany do it in Lauren's voice? Can we do that?
Oh, God. I don't have Lauren's voice.
That's a lot to ask.
Yeah.
But I'll bring up the document anyway. Now. Do you know what? This is kind of a reaction, because would you believe that I've not read those sections from the document yet?
Because you were there.
Well, yeah, because I was there, but obviously I wanted to read them, but was waiting for the right time. So this is kind of.
I think the people would like to hear it. I think. Let's see.
This is going to be funny for me. Right, bear with me.
Yes, we need you to use Lauren's crying voice, Tiffany.
I don't have it. I wish that I did. This is what you get. This is it. I don't have anything else.
How about a rage voice? We'll take the rage voice then.
God. But that doesn't really fit here, because he's crying and he's being sad.
I know. You know what, Andy? I definitely want you to do Mama Gwen.
All right then. I can do a pretty good Mother Gwen, to be honest. I'll do Mother Gwen. You can do Lorne Shin.
No.
Tiffany does female voices. Like, she's done a lot of Maria. It's your turn to put yourself out of your comfort zone and do a Lorne voice.
I'll do it if Tiffany lets me chew gum. Is that all right?
No deal.
You've been chewing gum the whole time.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do this thing. Okay, I'm gonna try. Excuse me. I gotta get into character
here. Oh shit! Females, watch out in the fucking Boston area. Somebody's getting into the character of Lord Armstrong. Mothers, lock up your daughters.
You're just a young one, aren't you?
Exactly, sir.
A little cutie too.
See,
sexy little thing in a pool.
I don't suppose anybody can tell me what page it's on.
Oh, it would be probably about 3/4 of the way through. I mean, it was the last. Remember, they took a break. And, you know what? I'll find it on my hard copy. Where's my hard copy? Here it is.
Are you on the right document? Because you're looking at the 822 one, I think.
Oh, yeah. Get off 822. Go to 10.1. No, he looks like 10.1. Oh, yeah, you are. You see the up top there where it says 10.1?
Got it.
All righty. I got to smoke. Hold on. I got to smoke 3 packs of cigarettes real fast.
Right.
Yeah. Hurry up.
Right. We're on to the.
Okay.
I'll do the.
We'll do it.
We'll do it in chronological order, and okay. I'll do Mother Gwen's bit.
Okay.
Okay. So you play the role of the court now, Shin. Just set it up.
No. Let Tiffany do. If I'm doing Lauren, she's got to have a part. So you do the court.
Such a slave driver.
I know. All right. What would you like to tell me, ma'am?
I am Lauren's mother. I have missed Lauren a lot. I am 79 years old, and he held me a lot. He is a very caring son. He has 2 dogs that love him very much. I travel 20 miles every day to feed his dogs. Where he worked, he got free water. He gave it to several family friends. He also gave 40 cases to the homeless shelter. He worried about me talking on the phone while I was driving, and he installed a hands-free device. Once I rented a freezer on a rent-to-own plan, and he paid it off and told me they had a contest, and I won. He didn't want to know he paid it off, but his siblings thought I should know. He cleans my car and vacuums my carpet. Bullshit. In the house. He is always there when I need him. My sister has paid his land payment twice, and I have paid his other bills, so the sooner he gets back to work, he will be happy. I feel so bad for taking the piss out of poor Gwendolyn. Isn't that horrible?
That was beautiful. Let's go back to that real quick. First of all, I don't think his dogs love him, but that's okay.
No, but she's got to try her best.
Yeah, it's one thing to say he loves his dogs, but and then the other one is, where is it? Vacuums his mother's. Tiffany, have you ever seen him do housework for his mother since you've known him?
I've never heard it. In fact, when he was over there, I think the last time, when he was forced to tell her that he drove drunk, he had also stopped over to her house. And she basically was kind of like, what are you doing here? You never spend time over here.
Oh, revealing. And what about this thing about this freezer? Who thinks in their right mind that Lorne wouldn't somehow try to convince Roy to tell Mom that he actually paid for it? And there was no.
Well, I think likely he could have done that. He could have paid for it, but this would have been 20 plus years ago.
Or he could have paid for it with Betty's money.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So when he was rolling in the money, whether it was with his septic business or from Betty, that's when he would have paid for it. Okay. And it makes me really sad that his family is taking over paying for his bills. It's such bullshit.
That's a good point about you don't know when that freezer thing happened. It could have happened when he was 19, for all we know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then, talking about, we've talked about this a million times, but the water incident, it had nothing to do with him just wanting to donate water and saying, hey, maybe I shouldn't just dump this out and give it to someone instead who can actually use it. But it's crazy. Sorry. It's crazy that, he thinks that he's going to use this as something that's good about him. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it was you who prodded him to go to the homeless shelter with it.
Well, yeah, because he's dumping it out.
Right.
That's so wasteful.
Yeah.
Just to get, 5 cents for the bottle or the can. It's ridiculous.
And his sister has paid the land payment twice, and she has paid his other bills. How long do you think that can go on for?
Well, that's her sister, not his sister.
Well, that's what I meant. I see. My sister. Yeah, right. But how long do you think they can carry that burden? I mean, this is
they're going to carry it until he gets out.
That's like $600 a month for that stupid journey he bought
for the car. Which so she's saying I paid his other bills. I'm not sure where she would have had the money come from because obviously she would be on some kind of a restriction with Social Security. So it's possible that she would have received the money from maybe an uncle, her brother, that seems to be okay financially. Yeah. So, it's really sad, that they're having to. Absolutely. Yeah, she's going to be 80 years old and she still has to take care of him.
I got to say, Andrew, I felt bad for her. And by the way,
of course we did. It's like the argument's been brought up a number of times, and we even addressed it in the last video about enabling and that. And it's very difficult because you can't. I understand what people are saying, but I don't buy into this. She should just leave him. A mother's instinct.
No, I didn't say that. I agree. She should.
No, I wasn't talking about you. I was just talking about people in general.
Yeah. No, I agree.
There was a bit of an argument about whether there was some quite heated debates in the comments section by various other people about about her responsibility to Lorne, and of course her behaviour isn't helping, but you can't ask a mother to just abandon the son, can you?
Well, yeah, that's a hard thing, but at the same time, I think what the criticism was first of all, she has her own kind of checkered past, I guess, with some I don't know, some scam with a mechanic or something, and I don't know. Again, I shouldn't be saying this unless I know for certain, but I've heard this several times. And the other thing is, that old common thing. Well, you sired this thing that you put upon the world. There's that kind of blame, and then there's also the enabling aspect that she has. So I can see where people have that.
Oh no,
but this woman had a pretty rough life. This woman, yeah. I mean, whatever it's worth, this woman didn't have a very good life with either the spouses she chose, and certainly the children she spawned. So, to a certain extent, she's not a pedophile, so I can't really.
Exactly. Let's go. It's not as far as we know, nobody else in the immediate family did this. So, but it's tough. It's not an easy. But I understand interesting topic.
I understand the criticism. I do.
Yeah, totally. I just you just can't. All I'm saying is you just can't expect a mother to just cut all ties like that. No, even if your son is Lorne Armstrong. I mean, it said it all to me when there was only her that turned up. I was surprised. I don't know why. I just thought somebody else would be there. But the more you think about it, you think who? Right. So, have you channeled Lorne?
Yeah,
Shin?
I have.
Do you want me to read the court's bit and then set you up?
Yeah. I want to step into this one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Right. Okay. Mr. Armstrong, as the defendant before the court for a determination and imposition of sentence, you have a right to address the court at this time. Do you have anything to say you wish to say to me, sir?
Well, actually, can you scroll down? Oh, where is it? Yeah, keep going. There we go. Thank you, Your Honor. Now, what it doesn't have here on the transcript is a 20 to 30 second delay in drinking water. And here we go. God, I don't know. I'm going to pay for this one. Okay. I wish I would have spoken before my mom because it's hard. Jesus, I want help from probation. I don't know how to handle the stuff that's online. It's not easy because it's not something I'm used to. I almost wanted to say I don't know what they want from me. I don't know how to deal with it. And I hate it when people think bad of me. And I try to do the right thing. But sometimes it winds up being the wrong thing. With me not being online, I can't sell I wrote a book when I was in jail before I've got 50% of the profits. Excuse me. I didn't mean to embellish. I've got 50% of it that's going to Wounded Warriors Project, and I can't even sell it online. And I've got people online that are reading it and making money off of it without my permission. And they're making money off my name without my permission. I can't protect me. I can't protect my family. Gather yourself, Mr. Armstrong. Gather yourself. Okay. The only thing I really want to do on YouTube is to be able to sing and do my cooking shows. Other than that, I don't care to be online. I don't care to even engage with anybody online. I don't know how to go about keeping them away from me and attacking me and my family. I can't get probation to help me with that because they don't even know how to do it. And that's part of what makes me drink. And I don't want to drink anymore. And I don't want to put my mom through this. That's all.
All right. Anything further, Mr. Casey? And well done, Shin. That was fantastic. You actually, you know what the difference was between that reading and Lorne's? You actually made me feel sorry for you, rather than just breaking down in laughter.
Yeah, it's gonna take me a while to get out of this character now. It's gonna affect me for a while, but yeah,
I'm not gonna speak to you for a while. Whatever you do, Tiffany, do not ring Shin up within the next 7 days because.
Okay. No problem.
I need my space.
Okay. So, so Mr. Armstrong, this is good. This is where the court actually tries to speak to him, with common sense. So, Andrew, I think you stayed with the court, so why don't you go on?
Well, can I say something for a second, just really quick?
we want to unpack what I just said. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's just a couple of things. I wish that the judge would have said, "Oh, the Wounded Warrior Project. How many books have you sold, and how much went to them?" Because that's $0. And also would have wanted. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, about him drinking. That's the part that makes him drink. He had a drinking problem before any of the stuff with the internet started. And so I wish that it was brought up as well. You know, when I know it was kind of in a moot point to bring things up when his defense really didn't have a defense. But the fact that he's bringing up, oh, he can go into counseling. That was already done before and failed. Oh, he can have a breathalyzer. He's going to go along with that. He's done that, and he's also failed. So the fact that he's already had all of these types of things put on him so that he can address his alcohol problem, he absolutely flat out refuses. The fact that he can go to AA and then get his chip, and he's, supposedly so proud of it, and then he goes and drinks the very next day. Mm-hmm. And then you ask him, why did you do that? I don't drink every day. No, that's his response.
My muscles were tight. My muscles.
Yeah, my muscles were tight. Exactly.
Tiff, give him a break, will you? Jesus Christ! Do you not think this guy deserves an ally? At least one person in the universe who's going to support him.
No, nobody ever would.
It's just funny. It's like he just enrages everybody. This guy, doesn't he?
I know. I start talking faster and louder.
I know. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, so you've got. How long does the judge go on for?
Well, let's get to the good part where you can be a victim of your own crime. Where is that?
I think that was earlier on that was about halfway through the.
Okay, well here's some good advice. Right halfway through the page, you're not going to suddenly change their mind. Let's talk about the community. Oh, he tells me he's a good guy, so I ought to believe him. They're not going to believe you, and they think it's fun to provoke you. So just cut it off. You don't need it. Listen to the radio, read a book, watch TV, but don't go on the
some amazing advice.
Then he goes on though. Is that too much?
Are you chewing?
No. Yes. Oh, sorry. Oh God! I just lied. I told you I'm still channeling Lauren right now.
He's still got Lauren inside him. Did you hear that, guys? There was a blatant lie.
A little emotional here too. Okay, and I think it's.
But you did a great job, so we'll let you off.
Took a lot out of me too. I don't. Is there anything below that? Because he said some other things. You don't need it. Control your alcohol.
Control your alcohol.
Oh, here we go. Here you go. Lauren does respond to the court. Okay. You want to lead me into that?
Yeah.
Cue me into.
If you stop drinking alcohol, that's a huge first step. And the second step is stop going on the internet. Just leave it. If you did those two things, I think you'd be an awful lot happier.
What do I do about... And Morgan cuts him off.
He's going to talk to you right now. Just leave it behind. That's what I'm telling you. Just leave it behind. That's my best advice. Leave it behind. The problem you've got is this. You committed a crime that makes people angry, and you committed a crime that worries people because they all love little 13-year-old girls. That sounds weird, that. And they all worry about them, and you can ask any father or any mother out there. They worry themselves sick that someone is going to contact their daughter on the internet and they won't know about it, and some guy's going to drive across state lines to try and visit them and have sex with them. That's something you did, and you're not going to change anyone's mind about it by going and arguing with them on the internet. So just cut it out. Cut it out already.
By the way, when he said that about people who have 13-year-old girls and they get angry when you do that, he looked at us. I don't know if you noticed that.
Did he really? I was too busy. If you remember, I was on the floor in stitches at that point.
Yeah, he was looking at us and saying, "You're not going to convince people." Yeah, I mean, he wasn't speaking to us.
Yeah, do remember.
Speaking of,
Because I was looking at him a couple of times when I was able to compose myself from the
one of the
hysterical
rare
fits.
times. It's one of the rare times because when we first came in there, the judge kept looking at us, trying to figure out what we were. I mean, Lauren's mother was on the other side, so that was the defendant's witnesses. I'm wondering if he was thinking that we were Lauren's witnesses. And then he began to figure out what was going on when Morgan didn't have any witnesses to bring but his mother. And I think he realized he's speaking to us.
Yeah, it's a good point. So, it's a brilliant point to bring up, that, because it's something that I remember thinking at the time, but I'd forgot it because I wasn't certain he'd looked at us. But now that you've just said it, he must have known what we were doing there, because why else would a group of people be at the back of the courtroom? There'd be no reason, would there?
Right. Exactly. I mean, I think he's addressing, basically, he didn't come out and say it, but these people are exercising their First Amendment rights. You're a newsworthy event. People want to analyze the shit out of you, and I can understand that. And they also hate you, and I can understand that too. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, because I'm not happy about the fact that I've basically disobeyed the Prime Directive by going to that courthouse and
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
No, hear me out. I'm not saying that I've done anything wrong, because I don't think I have. All I've done is gone to a court hearing that I'm legally allowed to go to. But I never wanted to make eye contact with him. I never wanted him to know I was there. So he looked me in the eye, he stood a couple of feet away from me, and he was trying to figure out who we all were. Obviously, it's his it's his court case. He wants to know what we're doing there. I'm not happy about the fact that I've had some interaction with him, but I haven't done anything wrong, because anybody could have gone. There was a guy at the back of there who had no idea who that was, and he kind of... Yeah,
but acknowledging your possible presence is not violating the directive. That's different. I mean, just...
No, it isn't, but I've still had some kind of interaction with him. I'm glad I went, don't get me wrong. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing, but it was just a very surreal, very surreal. It didn't feel good being in his presence, but it felt good to see the court case.
If Tiffany was with us, we would have definitely violated the directive. I don't think we could have contained her. I don't think we could have contained her, and he might have even thought who you really were and may have caused a scene. And in a sense, that is kind of violating the directive, but still. I don't consider us violent. It's nothing. It's no different than watching a play.
No, I don't think we did. I'm just saying that I'm not. If I could have had my way, he wouldn't have known we were there. He wouldn't have seen or looked at me in the eye. I'm not. But like I said, it's a strange scenario, really, because it's drawn a lot of interest through the internet. I've spent many hours making videos about him and met a lot of people. It was just a very surreal, strange experience. And I was flicking through the photos today that we took, because we had our own personal photographer, didn't we? He was fantastic and just documented the whole trip. And it was like such a strange... And having to like...
Yeah.
Sorry?
We still got to release some of those videos that we have too.
Of course. Well, we were looking through them today, weren't we? There's quite a lot of stuff still to come, so... Sorry, Amanda has just asked what the directive is. I see it as like the Prime Directive. There's a thing on Star Trek where it says you're not allowed to interfere with indigenous cultures, so nobody messes around, and I see that with Lorne. Not going into detail about the catfishing and whatnot and the rights and wrongs of that, but from a personal perspective, I've never wanted any interaction with him.
Yeah, but the Star Trek directive is to observe and report and study, right? That's what we did.
Which is what I do. So I never wanted to have any direct contact with him, because I've never thought it's the best idea, but I have had some contact with him now because of the court case. So I didn't speak to him, but he saw me, looked at me in the eye. He looked at all of us in the eye, didn't he? So it's just a very surreal situation. How do you think, if you was in that courtroom, Tiffany, how do you think you would have felt seeing him after all? Because we're going to talk about this maybe next week in a more detail, but you've got some pretty damning opinions of that guy.
Well, it would have been really weird, I think, just to see him there, just to see what he is 3-dimensionally. I think it would have been really, really odd to kind of sit there. And then, but I think it would have been great to be able to hear the judge talking to him like that. And then to be able to see firsthand, yet again, he doesn't get it.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Tiffany. I know that your initial reaction was a lot of disappointment, anger, and all that, and we all shared that, obviously. But after reading this, does it make you feel a little bit better?
Well, after reading it, I was able to see that probation was the one asking for 6 months, and that's what the judge granted.
Right.
I think that if they were going to ask for a year, he would have granted a year.
Right.
That's just my feeling.
But in terms of what probation is aware of, I mean, does that make you feel better? I mean, to know that they finally got a beat on this animal, they understand what they're dealing with now. Does that help you at all with this?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I understand that you're not going to be able to watch somebody 100% of the time. You're not going to be able to know every single thing that he's doing. He's absolutely going to revert back to his old behavior. He's going to. That's who he is. And so he's going to be careful for a little while. It's just like if you get pulled over for speeding, and how careful do you drive after that? You're pretty careful in making sure, okay, I'm going to drive safely. But then over the course of time, you kind of slip back into your old behavior for the most part. Right. And I think that's the reason why Lorne wasn't caught on any specific violation,